10th grade year is when everyone does Keystone literature exams. All right, they take place in May. You want to give a high five for them? No? You want to punch me for it? Wise move. Come May, we do Keystones. All right, and again, regardless of whatever 10th grade English class you're in, it's just one of those things that takes place. So rather than us going, okay, let's have our Keystone review for like 3 weeks before exams and all that kind of stuff, we'll do various things throughout the course of the year where you'll have questions that are meant to kind of mimic what would be showing up on a Keystone, but it'll be both fiction and nonfiction. So we're not going to do these kinds of questions for every single scene that we do in Oedipus or every single chapter that we ever read or whatever kind of text we take a look at. But periodically, every couple of weeks, we'll probably take a break and look at some Keystone stuff. Keystone's going to be both multiple choice as well as written response. Not going to worry about the written response till later. And actually, the written response, I think, is a pretty easy one for the most part. But the multiple choice questions are a little bit difficult, a little bit tough in the way that they are set up. You had 16 questions. Knowing that the questions were going to be fairly difficult, in Power School, I set up the assignment as an 8-point assignment. So if you submitted your questions and you got 6 out of 16, rather than it being a 6 out of 16, it went in as a 6 out of 8. What could happen, though, with the number of questions right, out of 8, since you had 16 of them? If you had a 12 out of 16, then you got an 8 out of 8 plus 4 bonus points, so you got a 12 out of 8. We're not always going to set it up that way, but I never do it where it's a raw score, where if you get 12 Keystone questions and you get 8 right, that would only go in as a 67%, because it's not expected that you would get quite as many right. The goal that we're hoping for is ultimately that you're around 2 out of every 3 clip, so you're getting 2/3 of them correct. So this one was kind of more looking at half, but I put it for fairly minimal points, so it wouldn't be something that would really kind of mess up anyone's score. What I want to do, I'm not worried about whether you really got it right or wrong, but what I really want to focus on is make sure you see the reasoning as to why the answer would be A, B, or C. So for most of these, and this obviously is not on your sheet, although you do have it in the packet itself, I put the text that the questions were referring to so that we at least have an idea as to why the answer ends up being 1 only, or 1 and 2, 2 and 3, or 1, 2, and 3. So today we're going to run through these, get through as many as we can. Tomorrow we're going to shift gears and be doing something else with Oedipus. So this is only going to be kind of like a one-day thing that we end up doing. All right, so number 1. In the second section of the priest's first speech, beginning with your own eyes, which we have here, and going down to the end of Thebes, the priest is personifying death, the sea, Thebes. Which one or what combination of those would we be taking a look at? Zach, do you know what you marked down? You marked D? Okay. So, where in here are any of these things, and this isn't directly for Zach, but where in here could we see any of these things being personified or getting human-like qualities?
Thebes is tossed on a murdering sea and cannot lift her head from the death surge.
Okay. So what does this knock out so far as death and sea? So we get 2 out of them?
Yeah.
All right, so Thebes is tossed on a murdering sea, so the sea is murdering. And who cannot lift her head? Thebes. So her head, Thebes, is being personified. So the only one we don't have yet at this point would be death.
The god of plague and raids
Detestable lightning.
Yes.
Yep.
Nephilim battens upon the misery.
So right there. Jack, you got that one right. And for this one, 67% of us were getting it right, which is putting us at a pretty good spot. When it comes to number 2, that was one that we struggled with a little bit more because this one was getting answered at a 33% clip. So 2 out of every 3 were getting number 1 right. 1 out of every 3 were getting number 2 right. what would be maybe one of the more important words in the actual question? Not worried about the answers, not worried about the passage, but within the question itself.
Except.
And notice it's in all caps. So should you get a question that's going to say except, they'll do something where they kind of highlight it for you so that hopefully you're able to recognize it. So what this is going to mean is the priest's speech makes it evident that he recognizes all of this about Oedipus with the exception of one of these four. So of these, which ones does he not recognize? So you are not one of the immortal gods we know, yet we've come to you to make our prayer as to a man surest in mortal ways and wisest in the ways of God. You saved us from the Sphinx, flinty singer, tribute we paid her so long that you never were better informed than we, nor could we teach you. So, if he is better informed, what is he? Well, they're coming to him, and they are certainly hoping that he is going to be compassionate, which, yeah, one of the main things they're doing is we're asking for help, so they expect that he's compassionate. You have a lot of favor, you know more than other people, so you are wise. So we've knocked out, we know it's not this one, we know it is not compassion. It's between, does he desire material fortune, or does he enjoy the God's favor?
I think it's C.
I said C because that was the only one that wasn't listed by the priest.
Saying that, when you, meaning that final answer would be C, desiring, not saying that it would be present in there. If, with him being so wise, saving them from the Sphinx before, and what has the whether by counsel of gods or men, king of wisdom, counsel of the gods would mean he's favored by the gods. So that is what's going to knock out A, meaning C is the one that would be left. So yeah, the correct answer for this one would be C, desires material fortune. Number 3, 93% of the folks got that one correct. That one is no. You're close though. Analogy. Simplest terms, what's an analogy?
So I only got those two wrong.
If you're going to have a one-word, it would work pretty well for it. Comparison, okay? So a metaphor, a simile, all of those things can even be an analogy. What would be an aphorism? I think, Zach, was it your group we were talking to on Friday who was looking up aphorism? Remember what it was? Tyler? You see aphorisms, especially if you get General Tso's chicken. What usually do you get for dessert?
Ice cream.
What do you get? Fortune cookie. You open up the fortune cookie, inside is a wise saying. A wise saying would be an aphorism. There's a synonym on here for an aphorism, and that would be a proverb. So for number 3, A and D mean the same thing. So analogy is the comparison that we ultimately end up going with. Try this one more. So for this one, we're going analogy. Comparison, ships are only hulls, citadels are nothing when no life moves in the empty passageways. So comparing an empty ship or an empty citadel to if you have a city where there is not anyone left, you're not going to be governing over anything at all. Number 4, this one was at a 40% clip. Oedipus' statement that he was not sleeping, you're not waking me, best understood to mean that he is not. I think we know what lazy would mean. What's dispirited mean? If someone is dispirited.
I just picked it.
Is that what you want to put? Yes. Dispirited?
He's like, he gave up pretty much.
Yeah, if you have lost all hope at that point, Nick's right, you would be dispirited. Okay? What would it mean to be exhausted? Well, you're tired. How about indifferent? You are indifferent. You don't really have any concern one way or the other. All right? Tyler, you're failing. You haven't turned in a single homework assignment. You're going back to second grade.
I love second grade.
That was the best time.
It's been like Billy Madison, reliving all those years of high school all over again. If Tyler shrugs his shoulders, he would be indifferent. He doesn't care. It really makes no difference. So he was not sleeping. You're not waking me. It's not that he was exhausted. It's not that he has given up. But as being the king, you're not waking me means that he is not indifferent. This is something that I am aware of. So it's not that I don't care, and I'm already going to start to try to do things to rectify this situation to end up making it a little bit better. So indifferent was the one that we were going with for number 4. Number 5, 87% got this one correct. So it was taking the word scant, and then you would be plugging in these words to figure out which one would work best. So to scant whatever duty God reveals, which word works best?
Limit.
Which one did you say?
Limit.
Not limit.
Neglect.
I don't want to neglect whatever duty God reveals. So that one is going to be B. Apparently we're working on a delay today.
Sorry, my brain's a little slow.
It's on Labor Day weekend time.
Today?
Oh no, it's every day that my brain's slow.
Alright.
20% for number 6.
B. B.
When Oedipus declares, by avenging the murdered king, I protect myself, he is demonstrating that he is. Why do they need to avenge the murdered king? What's the reason for having to avenge Lance? The main reason that we need to avenge it is to get rid of the what in Thebes? You said curse, the plague, okay, all these problems. Main reason number 1 that we have to do this, get rid of the plague. What's a happy byproduct?
Medicine.
If I get rid of the murderer who killed the first king, it might not, I could be then getting rid of a murderer who is also could be possibly going after me. So by avenging it, he is demonstrating that he is killing 2 birds with 1 stone, which would be practical. If the main reason for wanting to avenge the murder was, I need to kill this person so that I don't get killed, that would be the self-serving aspect to it. But the fact that you're taking care of both is where the practical part comes in. Hayden?
What if they want to kill you so they don't get killed?
Who's the you and the they?
I'm saying, like, as a hypothetical, what if the person that was going to kill the king wants to kill the king so they don't get killed?
I mean, at that point, then you're going to be getting into the whole self-serving. But the main reason that he's doing this is to limit the curse. So, because that is the secondary reason, that's where he's kind of taking care of that practicality aspect of it. And then number 7 down here at the bottom, the chorus lines most clearly parallel. This one ended up being D.
I had that one. And then I circled something.
Yeah.
Try that.
After you answer number 8.
It's not obviously B.
This one's kind of a tricky question in a way. What did you B? What did you say? Not obviously.
D.
D. So you went D. The answer for this one ultimately ends up being D.
Ah.
What makes this one tricky is part of it is ironic based on, for like A, B, and C, based on events that are going to be happening kind of later in the play. So if we're not aware of those events quite yet, we can't quite identify why it's going to be irony. One of the reasons, too, why I wasn't going to make this one out of 16 points. Austin, you can go rest of it.
How did I get that right?
Because
You're-
you're one fortunate.
Because you're a wise man who has the God's
I played
favor.
the lottery numbers off of the fortune cookies. Like this, the lucky numbers. My grandmother won $60,000 off of
And how much of that did you get?
5,000.
Oh, that's not bad. So Keith's 10 cents per paper that he picks up for you, by the end of the year, you could
It's
pay
all
him back.
Did you spend it on $2?
Jason, what do you think for number 9? Oedipus' question to Tiresias. Possibly he did not hear the messengers expresses his
I said B.
You said C. Jason, which one did you say? C? Okay. So we hear C. You said B.
Well, obviously it's not B.
I said D.
Said D. And if we wait long enough, someone's going to say, hey. This was the toughest question percentage-wise, as 13% got it right.
Uh-oh. Tell us what it is.
A, B, C, or D. It's one of those.
B.
Here's why I think so many people missed it. Because I'm not sure necessarily if people went back to take a look at when this would be happening in the play. Because what does Oedipus end up accusing Tiresias of?
Yeah, he can make murder.
That he at least conspired with it, okay? So if that's something that's in the back of your head, then certainly you're going to be taking a look at something with C with suspicion. But this is like one of the first things that happens before all that stuff has started to unfold. So maybe he didn't hear about the messengers. At this point, he's kind of wondering, why haven't we heard something back from him yet? It predates, it comes before the whole argument and all that stuff starts to occur. So that's why that one's going to be perplexity or confusion at Tiresias' slow response, because he simply figured he would have been here by now. But he has not arrived. Simile, metaphor, understatement, imagery, Oedipus' statement to Tiresias. Can you use bird flight or any art of divination to purify yourself and Thebes and me from this contagion? We are in your hands. There's not a fairer duty than of helping others in distress. That's probably the key word in the phrase.
I said understatement. What?
Anyone know what a contagion is?
A contagious thing.
Illness.
Yeah.
I think the word that we used earlier was pestilence.
Yeah.
That got mentioned, and I asked if anyone knew what a pestilence was, and it's an illness, a sickness. Contagion is going to be the same thing. So from this illness, we are in your hands. Understatement is going to pretty much be the opposite of like a hyperbole. So rather than exaggerating to emphasize something, you were simply understating it. So, you know, you have a 300-point test on Friday, not a big deal. Don't worry about it, would be an understatement. As well as a lie, because you do not have one on Friday.
Oh, thank God.
Matt, did you actually?
Yes.
No, thank me.
I'll judge.
Tiresias' attitude toward future events could best be described as, I put this as an example here, you could have picked a couple. You are all ignorant. No, I will never tell you what I know. Now it is my misery, then it would be yours. Misery is coming to you. There's nothing you can do about it. He is being fatalistic, where essentially there is no hope. It is what it is. What's reverent mean? You are reverent of something.
I don't know, but that's what I put.
It tends to be with religious, deeply respectful. So you tend to be reverent towards religious ideas, religious things. It doesn't have to be religious, but it would be a deep respect for something. In his prayer, or in the speech that is beginning wealth, power, and craft, and ending with destroy me, Oedipus could best be described as cautious, we know. What's it mean to be shrewd? Austin, since you were described by your mom as being shrewd, or a shrew, we're not sure which.
Oh, I got it.
What's shrewd?
Judgmental. Yeah.
Not quite.
Why? Then what does it mean?
Well, a person could be judgmental if they go, you're shrewd. Generally, the term that it gets used with would be like, you are a shrewd businessman. Or you are shrewd when it comes to your finances. You make good choices. Now, if you are a shrew, you take the D off,
So what's
or it
the
becomes a noun. Now we're basically calling you a critter, vermin.
Yeah.
You know, you're just you're a little squirrel. Paranoid means you are going to be worried. You're concerned, you know, at all times. Malicious is essentially going to be you are evil. So wealth, power, craft of statesmanship, kingly position everywhere admired. What savage envy is stored up against these? If Creon, whom I trusted, Creon, my friend, for this great office, which the city once put in my hands unsought, if for this power Creon desires in secret to destroy me. He thinks Creon's out to
Kill him.
get him, so he is
Paranoid.
paranoid. Uh, 13. 80% of us were getting this one correct.
I think C. Or B.
Rhetorical questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I got it.
Question. And with rhetorical questions, they are not meant to be answered. So you're asking them for effect, and he is certainly using this to kind of describe who he would be as a person, and also Tiresias as well. So he's going with rhetorical question. Alliteration, what's alliteration mean?
Repeating over and over and over again.
The first sound in those words over and over. 14. We were 60% with this one, so this wasn't too bad. The goal of this should be the Prologue in the words following Oedipus' speech. We cannot see that his words or yours have been spoken except in anger, Oedipus, and of anger we have no need. How can God's will be accomplished best? That is what most concerns us. What is he trying to do?
C.
Let's get back to the point at hand, which is trying to get rid of this plague and figuring out what's happened. Let's redirect. Chastise and condemn are going to be very similar, where you're being overly critical. Reiterate would be to repeat, to restate. Redirect, let's change course. $15. The only word on here that we haven't used before would be a parable. What's a parable do? I'm not saying that's the answer, but what's a parable?
A short story to teach a moral lesson.
Short story teaches morals. So the tortoise and the hare would be like a parable. A lot of religious stories, regardless of denomination, tend to be parables. So it's teaching you some kind
Like the
of
short
moral.
little Mexican stories.
The what?
What?
Like Dora's stories.
I think you probably could have
Like
worded
Dora
that
the Explorer?
Yeah, like her little Mexican stories.
You mean children's shows?
I don't
Yes,
think I've
that-
stayed awake during an episode before to successfully answer that
I
question.
think you could have worded that better.
But I'm saying like Mia when like this.
They speak Spanish, yeah.
No, let's.
Those short.
They speak
They always
Spanish, but
got
I'm
some
pretty sure
Mexican
that's not the
stories.
long and the short of it.
As long as it's teaching you something, that would work.
It's just using.
What do you think for 15?
Okay, well, here's a better iteration. Has anyone ever heard of?
Well, let's focus on, I'm going to be the Krogus and redirect.
I said A.
Going with simile.
I said B.
Answer for this one is going to be
D.
D, paradox.
I knew it.
You with your eyes are blind is going to be the paradox. You can see, you have eyes, but you are blind. Can't quite be oxymoron because they're not back-to-back words. So that's what kind of keeps it from having that oxymoron. But the paradox, the statement, it contrasts itself, reveals the truth. You can't see something even though you have eyes. And the fact that you have the blind person telling him this only emphasizes that point. 16, this one went very well. 93% of you were able to get this one correct because he is taking the form of a
Riddle.
riddle with number 16. All right? Tomorrow, we're not going to start scene 2 yet, but you're definitely still going to need your package because we're going to be looking at some examples of figurative language and how that is kind of being used throughout the course of the play. Specifically, we'll be looking at metaphor, simile, personification. It'll kind of be like Friday where you're going to be able to kind of work in groups, but you'll have tomorrow as well as Thursday to be able to finish that before you ultimately turn it in. And then Friday, I'll collect vocab from you, and that's when we'll get into scene 2 with